All right, here we go. Season 3 finale. I guess a bittersweet sort of moment, but no better way for us to be ending what has been another great season of the canon than with, I think, what a movie that many would consider to be a favorite movie of all time. Some would call it the best movie of all time. I've heard the word perfect thrown around for this movie a lot. Really a movie that everyone loves and enjoys, and we have a great crew here to talk about it. The movie is, of course, as you can tell from the title of this episode, The Princess Bride. We're going to be ending season 3 of the canon with that movie. And I'm excited to welcome on to the show for a great discussion about this movie, some of our favorite Saw contributors and repeat offenders on the show, the usual suspects, if you will. We've got Ramona, we've got Bob, we've got Duke, and we've got RJ. How is everyone doing today?
Good.
Really good.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that this was the last podcast, and I was like, immediately was like, oh, he's been in the podcast business so long that now that it's over, he won't know what to do with the rest of his life. So.
Yeah, who would I tell my awful takes to?
Just have to get the quotes in early.
No, so this is it's our last episode of season 3. We'll be back in maybe a month and a half or so for season 4. We just need to take some time off to let our producers and editors, aka me, Raph, enjoy some time away from the show. But before we get to that, we have a very important movie to talk about. So I think we don't really have time to beat around the bush. We already said the name of the movie at the top of the episode. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of amazing things to say about this movie and what makes it so special. So, gang, what do you say? Let's jump in to The Princess Bride and what makes it so special.
As you wish.
Nice.
Let's do it. So, I think, as you all know, the four of you, as well as many of our listeners know, we typically start off our discussions about these movies with just an understanding of our guests and their relationships to the movie, first times watching it, initial impressions, and just sort of what the movie means to each guest specifically on like a personal level before we get into sort of like the grander scope of, the movie's significance within film history or pop culture history or whatever it may be. So I think with this movie in particular, it'll be really interesting to hear everyone's, first experiences with it, early experiences with it, and just sort of like what initially drew all of you in to this movie. So I'm going to shut up. RJ, I want you to kick us off. I want you to talk to us about the first time that you saw The Princess Bride and just like how it was that you came to fall in love with it.
So I would have been about almost 5, I think, when the movie came out. So I don't remember the circumstances of the first time I watched it. I do very clearly. It would have been on TV, and I have just a very specific memory of the rats, the ROUSs, jumping out and attacking Wesley, and being, simultaneously horrified and awestruck by how awesome it was. So that is the earliest memory. But it's one of those things that it was on a billion times throughout my childhood, and I sat down and watched it every time. It is, I know you mentioned the word perfect earlier, and I don't necessarily know if I'd say perfect, but if any movie comes close, then that is this one. It has adventure and excitement and humor and romance, and watching it again for the podcast, I realized just how much it shaped my personality. Um, and just my view of things that I find enjoyable. It's a great mix of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this movie's super informative in like a lot of people's lives and understanding just like their sensibilities when it comes to movies, storytelling, to humor. It really is like amazing in that regard and all of the other regards that you mentioned. Bob, I think I want to kick it over to you next for your first viewings of and
Sure.
just like history with this movie.
Yeah, I did not see it when it came out either. I was heavily into horror movies at that time, as I am now, and so my personal choices were always around what was the goriest or scariest movie that I could possibly get. But occasionally, I would watch movies with my family, and you would have to make allowances for whatever they wanted to watch. And at some point, The Princess Bride was rented, and I was like, "Oh my god, the name alone is just this is just going to be a miserable experience for me." I probably brought a book into the room, honestly, thinking that I would just kind of tune it out and whatever. And it did start off a little shaky for me. I'm like, what's going on with this kid? And Columbo's talking to him, and then there are these, impossibly beautiful people that are like falling in love. I was just like the kid going like, oh God, is this a kissing movie? I can't. And then like 5 minutes later, I was totally sucked in. About halfway through, I'm like, I've never seen this movie, but I feel like I've seen this movie 100 times already.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, I'm like, all right, this movie has made me cry. This movie has made me laugh. This movie has filled my heart. I this is one of my favorite movies, and it kind of shocked the crap out of me that I could still enjoy a movie like this while my focus was completely on a different genre. And it's I've talked before in other venues about some movies are movies of the heart, that you love them no matter if they have flaws or not. They're just things that you feel like you can watch at any point in time, and they have touched you deeply. And this is one of those films for me.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I feel like there are a lot of people who share that experience of sort of being blindsided by how much they end up loving this movie and how much it ends up meaning to them after being a little hesitant, we'll say, on the initial watch. Probably more for a lot of guys than gals, I would assume, but still, I'm sure a feeling shared by many. Duke, I want to go to you next for your first viewing and overall relationship history with The Princess Bride.
Okay. One Christmas when I was a child, me and my brother got 2 DVDs. One was The Princess Bride, and the other was The Princess Diaries. Now, as 2 boys, we weren't too thrilled getting movies with the word princess in the title. So we did not watch those movies for I don't know how long. I'm pretty sure we watched Princess Diaries first, just because we did like Disney. And it's also an excellent movie, Princess Diaries. Quick shout out. I don't know when I finally got around to watching Princess Bride. Probably when I was a teenager, but yeah, it's like I don't know. Some movies, it's like, I had the same experience with like My Big Fat Greek Wedding and like Grumpy Old Men, where like you're almost introduced to them too early. And like as a kid, I watched those and then I didn't like them, and then I watch them when I'm a bit older, and then I love them. So same with Princess Bride. It's like I think if maybe this would have been a movie I maybe came across on my own as a teenager, I would have watched it immediately. But instead, it just collected dust until I must have read about it or something. And then I watched it, and yeah, of course, great movie. I guess I was kind of like a little Fred Savage, yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, I don't think I'm gonna like this book. But yeah, so in the end, I did like it, and yeah, I've seen it countless times since. Probably one of the '80s movies I rewatch quite a bit after Back to the Future, of course. So yeah.
Of course, a very rewatchable movie, which goes a long way in terms of being a movie that that deserves a place in the canon.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. All right, Ramona, bring us home. Well, not home because we still have like an hour plus of podcasting to do. But
I can take
in
that
terms
long.
of
That's fine.
Short.
No, I won't. I find that really interesting that Duke said some kids or some people get introduced to certain movies too early, and then they have more appreciation for it when they get older. Because I think, for me, I think I saw this movie for the first time when I was maybe 10, because my parents had the VHS. And it turned into one of those, my parents saying, "Hey, sit down and watch this with us," because they had already seen it and they loved it, of course. So I did, and it kind of fit into that Labyrinth part of my brain, David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly, that it became almost instantly like my very first comfort movie, that it just was something that I could sit down and watch. I knew it was going to have a happy ending. It was funny. There was romance in it, which you guys know I will watch anything with romance in it, probably. But it was mostly the story, obviously, between Wesley and Buttercup that really drew me in the first time, because as a 10-year-old girl who was obsessed with New Kids on the Block and Luke Perry and stuff, like I loved the romance, and so I could watch it and it was fine, but it was the romance that kind of made it one of those movies I had to watch all the time. And then as I got older and I watched it, I started to appreciate it more for how it was as a whole. The script was brilliant. The acting was so good. I caught on to a lot more jokes that I didn't catch when I was 10, obviously. There was some adult humor in there that I didn't really latch onto until I was more of a teenager. So it was just one of those movies that if it was on VHS, I owned it. If it was on DVD, I had to own it. If it was on cable, I had to watch it. And it's one of those also that I know somebody is going to be my friend if I can quote The Princess Bride in front of them and they know exactly what I'm talking about, and they can quote something back to me. Especially bonus points if it's not one of the more famous lines. If it's something a little bit more obscure, I'm like, this person is my person. And I think a big reason is, I think that might be a big reason, don't tell him that, but why I fell in love with my husband, because he was a movie guy too. And so it was fun to bond over these kind of movies. And The Princess Bride is the perfect kind of movie to bond with somebody over. But it's also a movie that you can watch by yourself and feel good about yourself. And it gives you a smile and it makes you laugh. And there are so many movies these days that I don't know really reach that kind of emotion in a lot of people. And I think it was done so brilliantly that as soon as somebody asks me most quotable movie, The Princess Bride, and near perfect movie, The Princess Bride. So I don't know. It's definitely in probably my top 10 favorites of all time. And I don't see that ever changing.
I love that. There's a certain kind of love language around being able to quote a text with someone and reference it and the other person knowing immediately. And I feel like this movie is that for so many people, where it's just it's like a shared language. And if you're in, you're in, and you can immediately connect with someone over that.
Those are the best movies.
Yeah. It really is it's how bonds are formed in a lot of ways. Ramona and RJ, as people with little people who you live with, aka children, have either of you shown your kids this movie yet? And if so, how do they feel about it?
I have been trying to get my children to watch this movie. I think I tried to get them watching it a little too young. The same with Labyrinth, where they were really excited at first and then they kind of, ADHD off to the other room to find something else to do. But they're 13 and 11 now. So I'm going to try really hard to get them to watch it with me, maybe mom guilt them a little bit. Just because there are a few movies I do this with, but I think The Princess Bride is one that my parents kind of quote unquote handed down to me and introduced it to me. And it's brought me so much joy that like, it's one of those movies I want to share with my children. It's just getting them to the point where I can get them to sit down and watch it. Cause I really do think they would enjoy it.
I had kind of the same experience. Mine are 14, 11, and 8, or almost 8. And the youngest is, I think a little bit too young to really enjoy it as fully as I do. And my older two, they were like, oh, well, that's a good movie. Thanks, Mom.
Like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah. I asked them if they wanted to, watch it with me, and they're like, "Oh, haven't we seen that before?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's it, but it's a great movie," and they were not super enthusiastic. Although I will say, I was very proud that my 14-year-old immediately quoted the Inigo Montoya, "You killed my father, prepare to die" line.
Nice.
And it was like, that movie? Yes, that movie. So, at least there's that.
That is a plus to know that line. It is.
Yeah.
I ask because I feel like, at least for people of my age, like Duke, we're sort of in the same age range. And I feel like for people around our age, this movie is one that was passed down from a lot of people's parents to, we'll say younger millennials. So I do think that this movie does have a bit of intergenerational sort of appeal to it in a way that a lot of movies don't. So, it seems like one that will continue to be passed down from sort of generation to generation. But it sounds like that we might need to push the Gen Zers or the alpha generation. I don't know which categorization your kids fall under, but there might need to be a little bit of a push to keep that sort of trend going in the way that it has gone since this movie initially came out in 87.
Mm-hmm. I'll do my part.
What you're saying is game. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys don't pass it along to your kids, then the movie dies. That's no pressure.
I will tie them to the couch and make them watch it.
Yeah.
I'll be bird boxing them, holding their eyes open.
Amazing.
We just turned it into an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, just putting children into little torture chambers to watch.
This movie has everything.
Okay, there's so many different ways that we can sort of like jump into the movie a little bit more, but I think one of the most interesting aspects of the movie is sort of like the framing of the story, which is, if you are someone who has not seen The Princess Bride. Actually, let me talk about my experience with this movie, because I feel like I've come to it in a way that is maybe a little dissimilar from most people, where, like I was saying, Duke and I were of an age where this is a movie that was kind of passed down to a lot of people from their parents, but my parents were never big Princess Bride people. I've always attributed it to like a cultural thing where, like, my mom's Dominican, my dad's black. I don't think that The Princess Bride was necessarily like that they were like the target demo for it. So it wasn't a movie that was like big in our household growing up. So I have come to it sort of later in life than most people do, but still like able to appreciate and understand and like see in it all of the things that people who have loved it for their entire lives, or people who have loved it for a very long time and, are able to quote it front to back and like watch it year over year. I'm able to see and appreciate all of those things about it. So it is kind of interesting to approach this movie from that perspective, where it's like, it's not my movie, but I can still see how it becomes someone's like, this is my movie for me, and like so much of my identity is informed by this movie. So yeah, so that's sort of my experience with the film. But going back to what I was saying before, the if you are someone who, like me, hadn't seen The Princess Bride until, you're into your mid to late 20s, and someone is like explaining the appeal of it to you, one of the first things that they're going to mention is like how the framing device of the story is so crucial to like understanding what's so great about it. So the story within the story element of it. Bob, what do you make of that whole framing device for the story, and like how it impacts the, just the level of filmmaking that we're able to see here?
I was so afraid you were going to ask me that.
It's a classic Raph move. He always asks the question to the guy who is always like, "No,
He's trying to hide.
Don't pick me, Teach. Don't pick me."
You guys are making it sound like I'm like a high school teacher
You are.
who is like
so
giving
true.
a lecture, and then like, yeah.
Please don't make me go up to the whiteboard and answer that math question.
Oh man, I thought this was like a fun activity for all of us. I didn't realize that.
I thought we were just going to watch a movie today, Teach. No, it is a huge part of it, and I think for me, it's a part that I kind of dismiss a little bit, and undeservedly so, because it's the characters of the story that I identify with and that I enjoy the most. But without the relationship between the boy and his grandfather, and how their connection evolves over the course of the film, and how they shortcut, some of the more boring bits. In fact, I think, wasn't the original title of the book something like The Princess Bride, the classic tale of true love and high adventure, the good parts version? So,
I can confirm, yes, because I was actually looking at that on Wikipedia earlier. So yeah,
oh, that's
like
cool.
The great parts, or something like that. Only the good parts, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it allows them to sort of lead. I don't know if I'm using the word correctly, but to kind of gloss over the parts of the story that could bog things down a bit, and you get, just basically pure fantasy and romance and adventure and all the good stuff that you do get from those stories, without having to actually go through and this is how they got to this part, and this is how this character learned this, and this is it. We just see everything happen, and then those other parts are kind of glossed over by okay, where was I? All right, let's move on. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking me, but that's what I got.
No, I mean, it does become like a useful tool in that sense, but it's also kind of like showing the underbelly of like storytelling in a lot of ways, or at least maybe like cinematic storytelling, where but then it's weird because the book is doing the same thing. But like when you're adapting a movie from a book, oftentimes you're cutting out sort of those parts that don't necessarily propel the action forward and are just like plotting from like one place to another or whatever. Duke, I know that you're a big advocate for movies don't need to be longer than X amount, and I feel like you've often cited The Princess Bride as being a perfect example for that. So like, what do you have on the storytelling technique, how it's framed, and then how it's able to keep everything contained within a nice tight 90-ish minutes?
All right, let's do it. First, I'll just point out William Goldman, actually, who wrote The Princess Bride, also adapted his own novel for the film. So he was working off his own novel. So I guess I don't know, just thought I'd throw that out there since Bob was kind of talking about the differences or
Yeah.
adapting it. So I just thought I'd throw that out there as a fun fact. 90 minutes, yeah. I think one of the reasons I like the 80s so much is that most of their movies are 90 minutes. You get in, you get out.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, 2.5 hours, like you think of a Transformers movie or something, and it's like 2.5 hours, and then it still doesn't really make sense. It still doesn't have that good of a story.
Yeah.
And potentially that could be like there's just too much. They're trying to accomplish too much. The Princess Bride is very straightforward. There's a love story which they set up, then he dies. Then all of a sudden, it's 5 years later. And actually, I was going to mention usually they always say screenwriting 101, like, having a narrator and exposition spoken by the narrator is a big no-no. But in The Princess Bride, they make it work because it's kind of like the narrator is Columbo reading the written text of the book. And so it works. It works in a way that, well, I should say The Princess Bride gets away with it in ways that other movies wouldn't if you didn't have this framing technique. Because you can easily just go, it's 5 years later, so and so is about to get married, because that's what would be written on the page too.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's really only 5 main characters. This would be like if, say, the Avengers, which we also just inducted into the canon, was only like the core 6 and then Loki. You didn't have S.H.I.E.L.D., you didn't have Nick Fury, there's nothing else. It just focused on those 6 or 7 characters. It's just, again, they're not focusing, they're not trying to do too much. And I think that also helps that it's an adaptation. You're working off something else, how to combine characters, and again, he's adapting his own novel. So he's probably thought, oh, this didn't work in the book the way I wanted to. Can I tweak this? So you're focusing on the love. You got the side characters. The side characters come back, they're henchmen, and then they kind of become allies again. So I think, yeah, just you're focusing on this core set of characters who are playing multiple different roles. Wesley becomes kind of a villain when he's chasing. We don't know who he is. Then Inigo and Fezzi, I don't know, Andre the Giant, they're henchmen, and then they kind of circle back later as allies because all their stories dovetail. It's like a sitcom almost, where you have the A plot and the B plot, and Seinfeld was always good at kind of dovetailing both of those at the end. So The Princess Bride is like that. Just, it's a beautiful screenwriting, I guess I should say, is what makes this movie work, and knowing when is enough and what to reveal.
I think you're the first person who I've ever heard compare this to an episode of Seinfeld, but I like it. I like the comparison.
Always got to be the first time. Yep. First time for everything.
Ramona, what do you think of the storytelling framing? Has someone here read the book? Ramona, was it you?
I didn't. I did not read the book. I have the
Sorry,
book,
RJ.
but I've never read it. I do wonder if it's a good adaptation though. I know he wrote it, but that doesn't always equate to a writer being a screenwriter. So I don't know. Was the book good though, RJ?
The book was good. It's different. It still has the story within a story framing. It actually does it in a very cool way, but I think the way he adapted it for screen works much better than the way it did in the novel. So in the novel, it is the author is recounting a story that I want to say, like, his father told him about his home, like fairy tales from his home country, which was Florin. And it was like, so Buttercup and Wesley was like a true story, and the author is writing this. That's where the title comes from. I can't exactly what the whole long title is, but the good parts version is because the author is cutting out all the boring stuff and from the original story and writing this abridged version of the Wesley and Buttercup saga. And there's footnotes and from the author and as the fictional author. It's very interesting. It's different.
I'll
But
have to give
it
a
is
try.
very good in its own right. I
did see there's a map, which scared me, but
it's I think I can't know because I read the book. My brother Dahlgren, shout out, actually got me the book when I was in college as a birthday present.
oh,
What a nice guy.
So
nice.
it was many years after I'd been watching the movie for forever. So I can't say, of course, whether I would have liked the book better if I'd seen it first
Right.
or read it first. But I think that they are both very good in their own right.
I like that they kept honestly, I'm kind of like in the same mindset as Bob is, where I didn't really give the framing a whole lot of thought when I started watching it, and as I've watched it over the years, I like how it's set up. I think the grandfather and grandson story kind of reflected how it was watching movies with my parents when they would want me to watch something and I'd be like, that's kind of how I was with Labyrinth at first. I was excited to watch it because I got to stay up late on a school night, but it was also kind of like, this is gonna be stupid. But then as these movies roll along and you start to get into it, then you start asking questions. You get, kind of like Fred Savage, beyond the is this a kissing book kind of thing. He'd get impatient. He wants to know what's going to happen. Wesley can't die. So I kind of enjoyed that because you kind of get that sometimes with your parents, or if you have children, as I do, you're trying so hard. Just listen to the song, just watch the movie, just let me read this book to you. And sometimes they push so hard because they don't want to do it, but then in the end, if they love it, it's such a meaningful thing. So as an adult watching it, I do kind of get a little bit more, I don't know, emotional about the grandfather thing, especially at the end when he asks if he can come back and read it again for him. Like, I was like, oh, because it just brings those two together in a way that obviously they didn't have before. And I don't know. I don't know. I think the movie would still be great without Fred Savage and, oh my God, what's his name? I know his
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk, thank you.
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk.
I thought everyone was just going to call him Columbo for
Yeah, for the rest of it.
Fred Savage and Columbo. But I don't know, keeping that story in there and keeping their relationship and letting it cut back to them when there's a question or something's going on really kind of ties the emotional core of the movie together for me. So I really, as an adult, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's easy to dismiss that framing technique, I think, just purely because there's always a good chunk where they don't cut back to it. Like, you're just focusing on the story at hand. So you can kind of forget that they're kind of that this is kind of him reading a novel to his grandson until they cut back to it. So I can see where kind of, Bob or any of us could kind of maybe forget that's actually going on until they kind of return to it. Yeah.
And as a writer myself, and I know we all are, but having written a book and knowing that you're telling a story and you're telling a story to people that you'll never meet, I should be more aware of that part of the film, that this is somebody sharing their favorite story with someone they love, and that it should be it's part of the story as well. But it just kind of has not been a part of my awareness up until now. So.
Mm-hmm.
It does this interesting thing where it both makes us aware of the storytelling, but also enhances just like the significance of good storytelling, because we in some ways are like the Fred Savage character, where we get so sucked into it that like we forget that there's that framing device, the same way that he forgets that it's like a story being told, and we just get so like wrapped up in this world with these great characters and their amazing sort of adventure that they go on, it I don't know, it does a weird thing of both like highlighting conventions of storytelling while also like breaking all of the rules of storytelling. And I feel like one of the things that this movie doesn't get praise for enough is this like really difficult high wire balancing act that's going on with like so much of it. I think some of you guys spoke about it before, but another big draw of this movie is the fact that it has a lot of different competing elements where another big selling point that people will tell you about The Princess Bride, again, if you're someone like me who didn't see it until their mid to late 20s, people would say, well, it has everything. It has romance, it has humor, it has adventure, all this different stuff sort of mashed into one. And it pulls it all off so seamlessly that it doesn't seem like it's doing a difficult thing, but it really is, whether it be the story framing or the balancing of all of the different elements. And Duke, I feel like you're big on, this movie really like containing everything. Do you have anything on like all of the different sort of aspects of the movie and the different sorts of appeals that it has?
Yeah, let's see. Fantasy, yes. Princess Bride. Yeah, it's one of those movies where in Hollywood it's all about four quadrant, which is, it hits male, it hits female, it hits young, it hits old, it hits every certain racial group. Princess Bride, Raph, you kind of spoke that maybe it doesn't hit that last group I mentioned, but it's got the romance, which appeals to the women. It's got the action, which, well, I shouldn't say just to the women. I should say it appeals to multiple people. There's something for everybody, every taste. I'd even say Bob, who says he likes horror. Those rats can be kind of scary, though.
ROUSs?
ROUSs, yes. Rodents of, what is it?
Unusual size.
Unusual size, yes. Yeah. Like the action, I'm watching that sword fight that Dread Pride Roberts and Inigo are doing, and nowadays he'd probably choreograph that a lot better. But still, it's quite fun to watch and see them do that. And I'm left-handed. Oh, I'm actually right-handed. Blah blah blah. And there's even there's like some there's drama, there's comedy, there's fantasy elements, there's the fantasy kind of dips into the science fiction. I don't know. It's really hard to kind of dabble in multiple genres at once and not, I guess we would say this is a fantasy movie, but it blends so effortlessly between multiple that, you could make a case for which genre is the dominant one. I know, in the 50 greatest rom-com movies list on Screen Age Wasteland that Ramona and Sailor did, Princess Bride was number 4, and I believe Sailor wrote to the Reddit. He said the only reason this isn't number 1 is that it's technically not a romantic comedy.
Yeah, we had that discussion. And I've had that discussion with a lot of people. Is The Princess Bride a romantic comedy? I'm like, it is, but it's not just a romantic comedy. And that's what makes it so great, is you could pull up any list, top 50 fantasy films, top 50 adventure films, top 50 romance films, and this movie's going to be on that list.
No, 100.
Yeah. No. No.
100%, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not the 100th on each list.
Out of 100, yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while too. When I was debating whether or not to even review The Princess Bride as a romantic comedy, but I was like, but it is, because it's got the romance and the comedy. It has the happy ever after. It's got all the elements you need. It's one of those movies that just has so much more. And like I said, as an adult, I've come to appreciate all the other parts of it so much more too. I mean, it kind of sort of feels like, despite how much I've seen this movie, it kind of feels like I hear something new or I see something new every time I'm watching it, like little details that I don't always pick up on. And I don't know. It's just, I think that's what makes it so rewatchable, is you're going to watch it, you're going to know all the lines, but there might be something there that you haven't seen before.
It's funny. I've seen some people argue that it can't be a true romantic comedy because romantic comedies require the leads to fall in love over the course of the movie and only realize it at the end. And they fall in love like in the first 5 minutes and never really fall out of love.
I would disagree with that. I won't go into a whole big thing why, because
Yeah,
I would veer off into a whole thesis about that. But
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the core of a romantic comedy is if you take out the this is my point of view. If you were to take out Wesley and Buttercup's romance in this movie, is it the same movie? Is the
That's a good point.
motivation the same?
No.
What is Wesley doing then? There's no
Right,
reason for
yeah.
him to become the Dread Pirate Robbers. There's no reason for him to come back. So because the romance is integral to this movie, it's a romantic comedy. That's just my opinion.
I buy it.
If you were to take out the romance and Wesley's journey is the same and the romance is just kind of like a nice subplot, then it's not a romantic comedy in my mind. But because the romance is so integral to it and it is a comedy / fantasy / adventure, to me, I would say it's not your conventional romantic comedy, but it is a romantic comedy.
Ramona, you are
right as always.
Yes!
Nicely done.
I think you convinced me. It
Yeah,
sounds like you
me
convinced
too.
everyone else.
I didn't know we had the budget for a Ryan Gosling soundbite, but nice.
We're good
perfect.
friends.
Yeah.
Oh,
Introduce me,
We're old
please.
friends. Yeah. That is a really interesting question, though. Is like, would it be the same? But okay, I want to go back to the movie has every element.
Right.
RJ, do you agree that it one of the things that's so beautiful about this movie is how it balances all of those different genres, interests, intrigue that it has, and is there one in particular that stands out to you? It sounds like, I think Ramona, Bob, Duke, you guys are all sort of, or Duke likes the fantasy. Ramona and Bob, you guys are maybe leaning more rom-com, but RJ, what do you think of those different elements?
I think that the romance is the absolute least interesting part of the whole movie. Is it an important driver of the plot? Yes, I would agree with that. But it is not at all the part I care about watching this movie for. I think that Wesley's great, but I love the side characters. I guess side characters. Inigo,
hard to beat.
Mandy
Yeah.
Patinkin absolutely steals every single scene of this movie that he is in. He's phenomenal, and Andre the Giant as Fezzik is just he's just lovable. Even Vizzini as the the what's the word I'm thinking of? The leader of the little gang is his.
What is his name?
All of these obviously.
Wallace Shawn.
Well, that's yeah.
There we go. He is
Vizzini.
Yeah.
Vizzini,
Oh, okay.
yes.
That I didn't.
He is funny, but also
He's so funny.
yes, he is very funny. But he's interesting. He's a different character than you see in a lot of. Well, I don't think you see a character like that in most romantic comedies. The Count Rugen is just creepy. Like even the little guy that's running the torture, cleaning up Wesley in the torture chamber is
the albino.
Yeah.
And Billy Crystal is Miracle Max. It's all of the stuff that's going on around the romance that makes the movie amazing for me.
I would agree that the side characters are absolutely the best part of the movie for sure.
I think without them and the actors that portray them so beautifully and the compelling, side plots, then the romance is going to be boring and That doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily disagree that it counts as a romantic comedy, because there's romance, there's comedy. I think that's should be all the qualifiers. But it is, that's just what keeps me coming back.
Yeah, and I personally, the part of the movie that I think I love the most now, other than the grandfather grandson thing, but is Inigo searching for the six fingered man. Like, it was always fun when I was a kid, but now I'm just like, oh, I hope he finds him and kicks the shit out of
Yes.
him. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I think that's a lot more interesting. I obviously like the romantic part of it still as an adult, but like you said, I think that the side quests really add so much to the movie and makes it what it is. I mean, you can take out the romance from the movie and say it's not a romantic comedy, but if you take out the side characters and the side plots, it's not the same movie either.
Can I ask you guys a question? What do you make of the connection between Wesley and Buttercup, their relationship to Inigo and Fezzik, where they both have, there's one character who has this like unimpeachable commitment to the other, where they like really go out of their way to seek out the other person and rescue them in some way. So like the bond and connection and love between Fezzik and Inigo is like, it kind of like mirrors Wesley and Buttercup in a lot of ways. Do you guys ever have that reading, or am I like totally crazy for for seeing that in this movie?
Why not both?
Yeah.
No, I agree that there's, it's not obviously not a romantic love, although there is that when Fezzik finds Inigo in the woods there, if they're cleaning it out, the riffraff, and when he wakes up from his drunk, the first thing he says is, "It's you." Like, what, the one I've been waiting for this whole time. But there's definitely, a love between those two that's immediately apparent from,
Yeah.
They comfort each other in the face of Vizzini's, ire with their rhyming. And
That's one of my
when,
favorite scenes.
yeah, and when Inigo cannot get through the door, Fezzik,
He's yelling
puts
for
down,
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fezzik! Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
Sometimes the side romance / bromances are infinitely more interesting than the main characters. I will say that.
Yeah, it's like an insane movie bromance. Like,
Yeah.
it's up there. It really struck me. It was more so, it was not so much when I was reading or when I was watching the movie, but I was like trying to do some like research prep for this, and I'm forgetting the name of the writer, but whoever wrote the like main essay for The Princess Bride in for the Criterion Channel was like pointing out that there is like a really deep love between Inigo and Fezzik, like a friendship love between the two of them, that is sort of like as important in like the central theme of love never dying, or like love transcending death, or whatever it is that you want to say. And like their example is just as strong as Wesley and Buttercup. I'm gonna ask one more annoying Raph question before we get into the actual fun stuff. So again, with this balancing act that the movie does that we don't give it enough credit for, I think the other great thing that it's able to balance is this tone of satire versus like this really deep sincerity, where we all like see the love within the story of our main characters, but like at the same time this movie's like poking fun at fantasy stories and adventure stories and like old-timey romance stories, while also showing a great sort of like reverence and respect for them. Ramona, Like, what do you make of that balance between satire and sincerity?
You know what? I saw this movie so young that it was all sincerity to me. I didn't pick up on any of the satire. So as I grew with the movie, I didn't really catch on to it kind of poking fun at these older swashbuckling films, romances, etc. I even now, like, I see a little bit of the satire, but I feel like it's so seamlessly sentimental. Like it doesn't overwhelm into like saccharine. It doesn't become like eye rolling. I
Hmm.
think it balances the humor with it so well that it it gets right to the edge, but it never goes over. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess I've never I could watch it today and probably still not pick up on the satire because I just think it's such a sweet movie anyway. But I did actually, not to get totally off topic, but I just watched over the weekend, it was on TV, I watched Enchanted. And that also is the kind of movie that kind of has the sentimental, slash satire. And I think that movie does it really well too. A little bit more satire, I think, than The Princess Bride does, but I think I noticed it a little bit more in these movies. So maybe I'll have to go back and rewatch The Princess Bride and kind of look for that. But I think because I saw it so young and I loved it so young that I never
Hmm.
picked up on any of the what they were trying to poke fun at. I mean, obviously, as we're talking about it, I can see it now, but it's at the time it just went right over my head.
RJ, where do you feel the movie lands on that spectrum?
I think the balance is great. I don't think it's poking fun necessarily at any of the genres so much as I would say more it's more of an homage. It reflects all of these things with uh with love and
Hmm.
adoration. And I I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that it shaped a lot of my personality, and that's how I am. I like to interject humor with seriousness, and even in the darkest moments, I feel like there's always some light spot to be found. And even I made a note here that I wonder if why have such a jaded view of life is uh, the same thing as when Fred Savage is outraged that when he finds out that Humperdinck lives at the end.
Right.
I was like, is that where that maybe that's
Where's the
why
justice?
I yeah, that's why I'm so cynical. Um, but I mean, it has all of those things, and none of them outweigh the others or overshadow or trivialize. It's all important, and it is all um it makes it all okay to feel these things. It's like it's okay. It's okay to have all of this stuff together.
Yeah.
But only if you're Rob Reiner, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it, it's kind of disgusting of us that we've gone this long without mentioning Rob Reiner's name, because all of this sort of magic that we're speaking of the movie wouldn't be possible without him behind the camera. And yeah, I don't know if this movie would be what it is without Rob Reiner. There's a really specific, like, perfect kind of tone that you need to hit that I feel like most directors would not have been able to hit the way that Reiner was. Duke, like, do you think that anyone else could have made this movie? Do you see Reiner as like the perfect voice for the specific things that this movie is like tapping into?
Man, that's a tough question to say. I mean, those are always kind of tough questions to ponder because you can either say yes, somebody could take it, or no, but at the end of the day, we'll never really know unless we live in the world where Robert Reiner did direct this movie. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I could see Spielberg potentially doing it. He seems to have, E.T., Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park. He's kind of shown that he can kind of give you the action, the adventure, the thrills, a little bit of romance. that bromance between E.T. and Elliot, you know, that Raph loves to see in Inigo and Andre.
I love romance.
Yeah. But yeah, like this is Reiner just you know, right in the middle of his kind of like his little hot streak there. Like he really didn't miss in the 80s. And he didn't really miss to the mid 90s. You know, he just was directing hit after hit. But I guess, you know, looking at his filmography, you know, Spinal Tap, that has kind of the satire you were mentioning. What did he do before this?
He did Stand By Me was the film.
Stand By Me, of course. Yes. That's even
But
almost.
it's weird that Stand By Spinal Tap is the movie that made William Goldman think, okay, this is the guy to do Princess Bride, which always stuns me.
Yeah, I could see that if watching Spinal Tap. I could see William Goldman saying, "This is the guy."
But you look at those two movies, and they're like on opposite ends of the extreme of satire and sincerity.
Well,
so it kind of makes sense that Goldman was like, "Oh yeah, this is the guy."
Well, if you look at Reiner's filmography, like which I was doing before we started chatting about this movie, like he's all over the place. I forgot he did American President, you know, Misery. Like he doesn't really have a genre, you know. I mean, of course, When Harry Met Sally, like similar to Princess Bride, you know, Rob Reiner kind of effortlessly has kind of done a bunch of different genres, and you know, you'd have to just pick which genre he'd be known for, based purely, I think, off your own personal opinion. You know, Spielberg, you know, you'd always say action adventure. I would say, you know, kind of that thrills. You know, George Lucas will always be sci-fi. Hitchcock's always going to have that horror or suspense. But like Rob Reiner, you know, like The Princess Bride, you know, you can't really narrow it down. You can make a good case for every genre. So in that sense, yeah, I think, you know, he would be the right man for the job, and he obviously was.
I do think that like Tim Burton's The Princess Bride could have been a great movie too.
80s Tim Burton, I don't know.
80s Tim Burton was my jam. Like 80s and
Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter as Buttercup.
Loved it. I would kill
Michael Keaton as Inigo. Like, actually, you know what? I'd watch this.
I'd watch it too.
He'd have like a stop motion giant though to play Fezzik.
Andre, yeah.
Well,
that's what I love about Rob Reiner is because I was on the Canon episode for Misery, and it's just kind of fun to how much we were talking, because that movie is horror / suspense, and it's so brilliantly done. And then Stand By Me is one of my favorite coming of age movies. The sincerity, the heart of that movie. And then When Harry Met Sally, of course, is arguably the greatest romantic comedy of all time. And, you know, Spinal Tap goes without saying. That was one of the very first mockumentaries I ever saw, and I loved it. So the fact that he can do all these genres and do them so well, at least in the 80s, I'm not going to talk about his filmography lately, but in the 80s, just how well he did. I think that's a big testament as to why he was able to make The Princess Bride just fit for everything. I mean, it was just, it feels like a lightning in a bottle kind of movie. Like, you can't remake this movie. You're not going to make this movie again, even if you try. It's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, there's no need to remake this movie. You got it. You did it right the first time. You know, there's no.
They'd butcher it so bad.
They would. Yeah.
It would be 2.5 hours.
There's nothing new that you can. There's no like new spin that you could put onto this movie, and there's also no improvement that you could make on this movie. So,
and it's even
if you can't do either of those things, then don't remake the movie.
Well, actually, they already remade the movie. I think Quibi did it as like everybody filmed their own part during COVID.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you're right. That's a little different. That was fun.
The failed $1 billion streaming service that launched during COVID. You know what it is. Okay.
Yeah, I'm offended that you brought up Quibi.
Well, we were talking like it never been remade, but I felt like we should be factually accurate.
is the right, like, we'll get to recommendations, but you go online and you type in, oh, I just saw The Princess Bride, I loved it, what other movies are like this that I can watch? And you're going to get recommendations, but none of them are going to hold a candle to what you just watched, and that's just the truth of it.
That is true.
I wanted to mention that one of the things that got me about the film was I had grown up, my folks had a bunch of books that were like compilations of old fantasy stories and old adventure stories. And then when I was very young, I got into Dungeons and Dragons. And when I first watched this movie, I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the thing, it felt like I had seen it 100 times already, because it seemed like it distilled all of those things down to archetypes that were immediately recognizable and familiar, but also, new companions that were in this same kind of familiar story. And I can't imagine, and like Francois Truffaut was one of the people who was going to adapt this at one point in time. And I can't really imagine what that film would have looked like. But people have said lightning in a bottle, that they could have understood the source material so well as to give us this perfect story in a way, and you've all said really cannot be remade in any realistic fashion, Quibi aside. It really is this perfect film in that way.
Yeah.
And one tiny thing about it, I wondered, when my niece was very, very young, wondered about, is this going to have the same sort of relevance to her when she finally gets around to watching it? Is she going to be steeped in the same sort of stories that I grew up with? And there's a story that my wife tells about when my niece was like 4 or 5 and realized that she and I were married, and that marriage was this thing that could happen. So she asks my wife, so you and Uncle Bob got married? I said, yeah. And did you wear a pretty dress? Yes, I wore a pretty dress. And did a witch put you in a tower?
Of course.
I was like, okay, this kid's already got the background that she needs to understand. Yeah.
Well, all good questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's just making sure. That's cute.
That is really cute. And I gotta wonder,
Yeah,
where did
adorable.
she get that? Because kids are awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
I always thought that the witch
I
put
did
you in
have-
the tower before the marriage.
Right.
But
Yeah. She may have gotten that out of sequence a little bit, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe that could be an interesting movie too.
yeah.
Get married, get put in a tower.
Before we move on from talking to like the structure kind of the movie, I know we talked about how succinct it is at being only 90 minutes and can do so much in those 90 minutes. And one of the things I found most impressive as I was rewatching this, because I kind of clocked it, Inigo's backstory that we get, after Wesley climbs up the cliff and before they start sword fighting, it takes like 2 minutes, I think it was slightly less than 2 minutes for him to capture his backstory, and it's just that's all that's needed for us to have such big feelings about him and his journey, and that being one of the most enduring parts of the movie. And I just think that's super impressive.
Wow. It feels longer, not in a bad way when he's talking. It feels like you're getting a whole lot of information. I never thought about clocking it. That's interesting. And a testament to how well it was done.
Can anybody else hear the music in their head from that scene when you're thinking about it?
Yeah. And I think too, like, you find out, because I know Mandy Patinkin had said that like he had lost his dad to cancer. So he kind of, put a lot of that emotion into his performance and why he how he missed his father and how badly he wanted him back and wanted revenge. And
Yeah.
I think maybe as an adult, that's why it touches me a little bit more than it used to. But that's crazy that they were able to convey so much in 2 minutes.
Yeah. And I have to say, when I first saw the movie, when you get to that part where he says that line, "I won my father back, you son of a bitch."
Yeah.
I burst into tears, and I was a teenager who did not cry. That was not something that was going to happen. And I burst into tears, and it took me years to realize it was because I had lost my grandfather at an early age.
Yeah.
And I so identified with that desire to have that important figure in your life back. And I hadn't even realized it at the time that I was crying about it, what I was actually crying about.
These movies.
Yep.
Man.
Powerful stuff. This movie, like you guys were saying, it does it all. It does it efficiently. Bob, like you were saying, it kind of like it can sneak up on you and impact you in ways that you may not know at the time, like why it's impacting you the way that it's impacting you. But then at the same time, like one of the great appeals is like, okay, this movie is just like super playful, very whimsical in like all of the best ways possible. But then, at the snap of a finger, it can also be extremely like emotionally revealing to anyone who's watching it based on wherever they might be within their personal life journey. But now I'm going to try to awkwardly transition us away from these really deep conversations to the fun stuff, which is why people are actually here. These are the questions that everyone that you guys want to answer, that listeners want to actually hear you guys answer. So we'll try to, maybe we don't have to go too rapid fire with these, but let's get to the fun stuff. Out of all of the different goofy creatures and side characters, Ramona, who was your favorite, or which was your favorite of those creatures and side characters?
Side characters, my favorite is Vizzini, Wallace Shawn. Only because he's so insanely ridiculous and smug. And he does have some of the best lines before he meets his untimely end. I think if you were to ask me what my favorite quote is, it's from Vizzini. So I think he's probably my favorite, with Miracle Max probably being very close second.
Both great options.
Yeah.
Great options. Bob, who or what is yours?
Well, Inigo is always going to be the character that I most identified with and wanted to be when I was young. But I have a weird soft spot for the bishop. The marriage. He just, for some reason, tickles the shit out of me every time he's on screen. I just kind of wanted to see more of him and enjoy it. Yeah. So
yeah, that's a great choice. Duke, who is yours?
Oh, tough to say. I like Inigo. I like Wesley. Yeah, it'd have to be. If I had to pick, I'll go Wesley. I like Wesley. I don't know. He's kind of he's like the everyman almost. Or I could see myself, if I had to pick someone, I could see myself being closer to Wesley than Inigo. Inigo's kind of like you want to be. Inigo kind of reminds me of like Jack Sparrow, and that I'd want to be Orlando Bloom's Will Turner and like have like Jack Sparrow like be my sidekick friend type guy. So I'd want to be Wesley, and then I get to have Inigo kind of like being all cool.
So Bob would be by your side. He'd be your sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. I like Bob being Inigo to my Wesley. Yeah, I'll give him the Dread Pirates Roberts moniker after.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so Wesley's kind of a main character. If you're going,
I'll say the rats always. I always thought the rats were kind of freaky. So
The rats.
The
So
rats is
Wesley-
almost like the most
Wesley or the
unrealistic part of
rats,
that
yeah.
movie are the gigantic rats. And I always love the part where they're introduced. Like, oh, the rats
Yeah.
of unusual size. Oh, we haven't even seen them, so I doubt they even exist. And then he just gets absolutely smoked by. Like it's thrown. Like that thing jumps. It looks like
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
smokes him in the shoulder. So yeah,
Yeah.
they got some,
It's one of
got
the
some
best
jump to 'em.
gags. I don't think they
The
exist.
vertical of those rats is insane.
Yeah.
That is a great gag. Okay, I'm happy you picked that because I was hoping that someone would say the rodents of unusual size. RJ, who or what would you go with for best side character / creature?
So, I mean, I think Inigo's an obvious choice, but I consider him more of a main character. So, after that, it would be Miracle Max because Billy Crystal, yes, in everything.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
So,
He's so funny.
they filmed those scenes for 3 days, and he didn't repeat a joke. Supposedly,
I believe it.
and
Yeah.
like Mandy Patinkin said, the only injury he got the entire time was he bruised a rib laughing so hard at Billy Crystal's jokes. And I'm like, there's got to be outtakes somewhere, right? They shot 3 days of this stuff. I would love to see it.
It's probably urban legend, but the story goes that Reiner couldn't be in the room while they were filming those scenes because he was laughing too hard.
God,
believe
it's so
it.
good.
I hope that's true.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's
Okay.
great.
So good.
All amazing choices. I love it. I feel like we hit everyone who we needed to hit. We got the wizard, we got the bishop, we got the rodents, and we got someone else.
The villain. Wow.
We got the villains. Inconceivable.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Now let's go through same order. Favorite line, Ramona.
My favorite line is honestly, it's Vizzini's talking to Inigo and Fezzik about how much they need him, basically, and he tells Fezzik that he was friendless, brainless, helpless, hopeless. Do you want me to send you back where you were, unemployed in Greenland? I don't know why that line.
It's awesome.
I have to pause it because I'm laughing so hard every time. That's probably my favorite line, and it's probably more to do with the delivery of it. But I also, if someone were to ask me, I would honestly probably just say life is pain. Anyone who says differently is selling something because it's so relatable.
That's such a good one.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little too relatable.
Yeah.
Both great options.
Yeah.
One very funny and one a little too real.
A little too real. That's why I go for the funny one.
Bob, what was yours?
Well, I mean, my favorite line of all time is I want my father back, you son of a bitch. It's just the greatest line. But the line that for some reason sees the most use with my friends, and it's always inevitably when we're trying to do something and we can't figure out what we're going to do or what we need to do, and somebody goes, "If only we had a wheelbarrow, that would be something." And so
That's so good.
So that's the line that we probably use the most.
Wow.
I do enjoy that.
That is hilarious.
That's got like real life
Yeah.
use.
Yep.
That's amazing. Duke, what's yours?
I do like As You Wish, but I did write down a quote which I had completely forgot about. So I'm gonna say that because I just think it's just a great line, and that is, I didn't write down who said it, so someone jump in after I'm done with who actually says this. But the quote is, "Death cannot stop true love. All it can do is delay it for a while." And I kind of thought that was just
Wesley.
Yeah.
Oh, Wesley says it. Okay, yeah. No, I just thought death cannot stop true love. All it can do is, because eventually you'll be reunited in the afterlife. And I thought, oh, that's a
that is very
that's just a really great line. I thought,
I really do.
Yeah,
like
that's
that one.
beautiful.
But I love saying
that
"as you
one.
wish" just in everyday life as well. So
Yeah.
you know,
Of course.
'cause I just love that. I thought, oh man, that is such a great line. As a fellow writer, like Bob was talking about, just like, oh yeah, coming up with dialogue, it's like, oh yeah, that's just so good. Like the way it's just, I just love it. So
Yeah.
that's a new favorite, I'll say, in terms of quotes.
Nice. I love it. All right, RJ, what's yours?
No, wow, it's unfair to have to pick one. That's
Yeah.
Just one.
that's just rude. So I'm gonna have to. Can I have one funny and one serious?
I did.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so the funny one, and one that I probably have used the most is Miracle Max. Have fun storming the castle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's, a timeless send off to anyone that's leaving. Is
Mm-hmm.
that. And then as far as serious, this is Inigo. After 20 years, at last my father's soul will be at peace, and there will be blood tonight. I'm not going to try to act it out because I'm not good at that, but um, it's a good line, and the way he says it is just fantastic.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's so many good lines.
Yeah.
So many.
You know it's a great movie when everyone can pick a favorite funny line and a favorite
Yes.
serious
Yeah.
emotional line. That's the sign of a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is necessarily my favorite line, but because I'm a sicko, I caught a sex joke and I want to just run by all of you guys to make sure that it is what I thought it was. When they're going to the tree that has like the magical knob, and I think it's is his name Rugen, the 6-fingered man?
Yes.
Rugen,
And
yeah.
he's like, oh, where's that knob? I always have trouble finding it. And then he finally gets it, and the door in the tree opens up, and like it kind of looks like lady parts.
Oh my god.
Am I the only one who picked up on that? Or is that like a known thing?
I don't know. I don't think
have not heard it before, but
now I'm gonna be looking for it though. So
That's all I'll see
He's
now.
like, where's
Yeah.
the knob? I can never find it.
Yep.
And I was watching with my girlfriend. I turned to her and I was like, that was a sex joke, wasn't it? It had to be.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Youths.
Okay. So there's not as good as everyone else's lines, but maybe a thing that happened. So the last question before we get into recommendations and all of that stuff. This movie features 2 all-time great movie mustaches. Who has the better one, Inigo or Wesley?
Come on,
Debate.
Debate.
Inigo.
I think Wesley's is embarrassing. I was looking at that and I was like, it kind of changes too.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at it quite a bit, and like halfway through, it kind of grows a bit more.
That's hilarious.
But it's like, no, it's pathetic. Wesley.
But isn't part of what makes it so great the fact that it's like it's not a good mustache?
No, I don't think so.
That's not like the joke?
Maybe it's part of the joke, but
it's like a crappy pirate mustache. I feel like pirates always have bad mustaches.
If you were to ask me what it looks like right now in my head, I couldn't picture it. But if you were to,
it's like a pencil thin, wispy mustache, and then it kind of grows an inch about halfway through. It seems like it's a bit thicker, but still looks bad.
Inigo is a Spaniard, and he's got the stash.
Right.
Like that's the only thing that matters.
Prince Rugen has fairly pronounced facial hair as well, but
this is a very villainy facial hair, though.
But you got to give
that's more goatee, right?
And Inigo's hair is also making that mustache work just as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
If Inigo had short hair, I think it would also look kind of bad. Used car salesman bad, but
can we give Fezzik's mutton chops a little?
Oh yeah, that works too.
There's also the guy that's in charge of the gate key.
That's right.
Yes.
He has. I think he's the most impressive facial hair.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, as the owner of a bad mustache, I think Wesley's is pretty good as well, but Inigo does have the superior mustache of the
Oh
two.
yeah, that gatekeeper. No, I think he used to got the superior stash. I just googled him. Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
is a stash. That's a stash into some mutton chops. That's like,
Oh, wow.
what is that called? Where it's like the beard, but then he's shaved the goatee area, and then it goes up. That's nice. And he's got the wavy hair too. Yeah, that's nice. I should grow that. No, that's nice.
I think of that as the Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead look, but that's just me. All right, moving on.
Well, those are all of the questions that I had. Do you guys have any final thoughts on The Princess Bride before we move on to our recommendations?
It's perfection to me. I know people can find flaws in it. I know they can nitpick. I find no flaws in this movie. I don't care that the mustache is bad. I don't care that maybe the sword fighting scene doesn't look as smooth as it should. I don't care that the ROWSs or whatever they're called are little people inside of them. Like,
wait, what?
Yeah, they're the one
Yeah.
who wrestles with Wesley is a man inside that suit.
Oh man, I thought that was like
Animatronics
robotics
or
or
something.
something
No,
like that.
there was a guy because I think
Or
he got
stop
into
motion. Oh wow.
he got into a car accident or got pulled over or something the day they were supposed to film, and it was a whole big thing.
No, he burned down the kennel that he shared with his girlfriend.
There you go. That's a lot more interesting.
Wow.
This is just getting more and more confusing.
That's
Kennel. What is a kennel? Makes me think like a dog kennel. So what do you mean by kennel?
Yeah, a dog kennel. They apparently ran dog kennel together, and they had a huge fight, and he burned the kennel down and got
And
put
then he
in
went
jail.
to work and put on a rat costume. And
No, he got put in jail, and they had to bail him out.
Feel him out.
oh, boy.
So he
I
could
hope he
do
went back
that.
to jail after that. But
I hope so as well.
but yeah, it's there's watching it now. If you're gonna watch it with like, it's kind of like when I watch Labyrinth and I notice the green screen, you know. But at the same time, I don't care because it's just Princess Bride is just a movie that makes me happy. There's nothing I hate about it. There's nothing that I want to fast forward through. There's not a potty break for me. Like I'm like, okay, I can go to the bathroom while this part's on. Like I have to watch the whole thing. And there are very, very few movies I think that feel that way to me. That is just all around perfection.
Yeah, I agree. It's, to use another quote from the movie, let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I love this movie. There is no point at which I'm unhappy watching this movie. So
I love how Bob managed to sneak another quote in.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
We probably could have been doing that this whole time if we're honest with each other.
that's true.
Yeah.
I
The
have
lack
fought
of
the urge, by the
Inconceivable.
way.
Oh, I was trying to work one in, but nobody said anything that made Inconceivable work.
I felt like
That's
somebody else was going to say it.
Yeah.
The lack of Inconceivable is inconceivable.
Yeah.
There you go.
Do you not think? I do not think you know what that word means. What is that quote? Because I like that quote almost more than
You keep
Inconceivable.
using
But
that
Inigo's-
word.
Yeah, that's what,
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
that's also a good quote.
Also been fighting the urge to add a rhyming line after the end of everyone's,
Yes.
talking.
Anybody want a peanut?
Peanut?
I love that scene so much.
It's just the best.
It is.
I fear that we could go on with this all night.
Oh my God, we could
If we
probably
just get into
Yeah.
yeah,
We
if
just
we
do
get
the
into a
whole
quoting
movie.
fest. Yeah.
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 Reenactment.
Mm-hmm.
But instead and we'll put it out on Quibi. Instead of that, let's if you guys are ready, let's jump into some recommendations because I'm sure we'll have some really good ones for this movie. In case we have any new listeners out there who are joining us just for this special episode about The Princess Bride, for each movie that we introduce into the canon, we also recommend 3 things each for other things to check out if you like said movie. Those 3 things, at least one of them has to be another movie. The other 2, however, can be any and everything else. It can be more movies. It can be a book. It can be a video game. It could be a band, an album, a comic book, a restaurant. We like to get really creative. The connections to the movie of the week can be as loose or on the nose as you like. Again, we like to get super creative with these things. The only thing that we ask is that we stick to 3 recommendations and only 3. And for any movies that we recommend, they just can't be movies that are already in the canon. So what we'll do, we'll go around the room. We'll each name what our recommendation is. We'll give a brief explanation for why we're recommending it, or we'll give the brief explanation and then say what the thing is. But we'll go with the same order that we just went for those questions. So, Ramona, you can kick us off. What is your first recommendation for The Princess Bride?
I'm going to go with the obvious recommendation. At least I think it's obvious. That is the 2007 fantasy film called Stardust. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was adapted from a
Neil Gaiman. Yeah,
Neil Gaiman, who is absolutely fantastic if you love fantasy. So I would recommend anything by him. But Stardust is about a young man named Tristan. He has to retrieve a fallen star in order to win the hand of his lady love in marriage. But he finds that the fallen star is actually a woman who is also being sought after by sons of a king in order to win the throne. So there's a lot of adventure and romance. There are pirates. So I think it's one that kind of took me by surprise when it came out, and I really enjoy watching it. I think it would be a fun kind of sister film for The Princess Bride. So Stardust is my first recommendation.
I love it. Great
Nice.
pick.
Yeah.
Bob, what's your first?
All right. As I mentioned maybe before we started, I had forgotten that we're doing this tonight. So my list was hastily cobbled together and contains things that I'm looking at now and going, do I really want to say that? No. So I'm going to go with my first obvious pick. It's another 1980s fantasy movie that provoked the same sort of emotions in me as I watched this. It's not as quotable. It's not as perfect, but I do love this movie an unreasonable amount. It's Rankin and Bass's The Last Unicorn, adapted by Peter S. Beagle from his own novel. So it has that connection in that the writer adapted it for the screenplay. It stars Alan Arkin as a kind of half-assed wizard named Schmendrick, who befriends the last unicorn and has to protect her from a bad guy who wants to possess all of the unicorns. And that there's Christopher Lee's in it, Jeff Bridges, Mia Farrow, and Paul Frees, the great voice of Paul Frees as the bad guy. So
that's a good pick.
Thank you.
Sweet. Would you guys be mad if I said I've never seen it?
Nah.
Yes.
Don't watch it.
I will add it to my watch list. Awesome pick.
Yeah.
I love it. Duke, on to you.
All right. First up, I'm going with Fred Savage movie that came out 1 year after this, Vice Versa. It's also got Judge Reinhold, who plays his father. Yeah, and then they it's like Big. No, it's not like Big at all. It's like Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday, yeah.
They swap bodies, and then insanity ensues, of course. It's not a good movie, but I was kind of thinking, oh man, what can I pick? I didn't want to go with too obvious of choices, you know. I thought of some other ones that kind of good action. So I was like, oh, Vice Versa. Nobody would ever pick this. And it's kind of fun. I like Judge Reinhold. I kind of, you know, in terms of the 80s, I got a soft spot for him. So that's kind of why I picked it up. But Fred Savage is also pretty good in it. So yeah, you know, if you watched Princess Bride and came away with Fred Savage as the grandson as your favorite character, you know, just watch Vice Versa.
I've never heard of that movie.
Oh, wow. There you go. Learn something new. And yeah, I wouldn't buy it. I'd try to find it on a streaming service, but
Oh no, I'm not going to buy it, but I'll try to find it for free.
You have to
I
buy
like
it.
I like the body swap movie. I'll have to check it out.
yeah, it's definitely it's not as good as Freaky Friday, of course, but it's got some good moments. But yeah, it's got some
Yeah,
good
I like
moments.
that.
It's so fun. I like it. Great first pick. Okay. RJ, what's your first one?
Let's see. First one, I'm gonna go with, and I don't know, maybe this is kind of obvious, but I'm gonna go with the 1970s television crime drama Columbo, starring our awesome
Nice.
grandfather Peter
Yeah.
Falk,
Nice.
because he was awesome, and Columbo is a fantastic show, and I can watch him, come back in and say just one more thing a billion times
Yes.
Aw.
as he's about to catch the bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've
That's
heard
awesome.
Columbo's had a bit of a comeback because it was recently put on Peacock. So new generations are finding out about Columbo, and there are like 1,000 episodes. So apparently it's like hot in the streets right now. I've never seen an episode, but you know, it sounds like just like amazing TV to have on at all
Yeah.
times.
yes.
It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Pick.
Amazing. Great pick. I love it. I was kind of hoping that someone would pick Columbo. Okay, for my first recommendation, I'm also going to go with something super obvious. This movie features a great moment where people tumble down a hill for a long period of time, and I think we all know the other movie that features a great scene of someone tumbling for a long period of time, which
Yep.
is Andy Samberg's Hot Rod.
Hot Rod.
Oh my god.
I love that movie.
Oh, good lord.
The very obvious pick that everyone was thinking of.
Yes.
As soon as you said it, we're falling down it for a very long time. I knew it was going to be that movie. Oh my gosh. I remember watching
So
that movie
silly.
and looking at my husband like, what's he done? What's happening? But he just gets up. It's great. That's a great pick.
It also allows me to do this.
Let's party.
All right, Ramona, what's your second recommendation?
I gotta have to watch that movie again. So this might be another obvious pick for me, but this is a movie that I also grew up with, and it is also, I have many comfort movies, and this is one of them. It also has some swashbuckling in a way, and an adventure, and pirates. And I'm going with 1985's The Goonies.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
I have
Is that
to
not in the
assume
canon?
it should
I
not
don't
be in the
think it
canon.
is, no. It should
And
not be, did you say?
No, not until I can write. If I haven't written it, it's not in the canon, because that would be one that I am going to take, because this movie means so much to me. And I don't know, I just like the whole, the misfits finding the treasure map, going on an adventure to try to save their neighborhood, their town. And of course, there's 3 bad guys with some Italian names, so it kind of fits. The Fratellis. So I don't know. It's just one of those 1980s movies that if it's on, I'm going to watch it. I think I love the fantasy adventure of it all. And again, it's got pirates in it. So I think I have a pirate theme going on here. So bear with me, but
Nice.
my second pick is The Goonies.
3 bad guys with Italian names.
Very
Well,
well.
Fezzik. I mean,
Excellent
I hear
pick.
Fazzini, I think Italian. So
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's the I
Yeah.
think that's the best
He's
connection
the
that anyone's
Sicilian.
ever made
they have an
between a
Italian
movie
name.
and the recommendation. I love it.
That's awesome.
Bob, what's your second pick?
All right, so my second pick is I'm not feeling so bad about how weird and left field some of these are. So my second pick is a movie came out the year after this one. Also features a professional wrestler in a prominent role, and a scene in which two of the characters get into an extended fight scene before broing it up. I am, of course, talking about John Carpenter's They Live, featuring Roddy Piper as the main character who discovers by getting some special polarized glasses that aliens have invaded us and
Oh my god.
are leading us to be subdued by consumerism. It's a fantastic. It has one of the longest fight scenes ever put to film in a back alley.
What was it called?
It's called They Live.
They Live. Okay.
Yep.
Not seen that one.
Really?
Oh, you're missing out.
Is that the one with the poster with
Yes.
the guy with the glasses and the skeleton?
Yes.
I remember that one.
Yep.
Of course, I guess it could be an alien. I always thought it was a skeleton. Never saw
Yeah,
it.
they kind of looked skeletal when you see them. Yeah. So.
That's awesome. Consumerism.
Another great connection point
Yeah.
between the recommendation and the movie of the week. I love it. All right. Duke.
Well, after you watch The Goonies, you could just put on Throw Mama from the Train, which also features Anne Ramsey, who plays one of the Italians in The Goonies.
Very true.
Throw Mama from the Train.
Fantastic.
I'm picking this because Billy Crystal's in it. Billy Crystal, of course, had a little supporting role in Princess Bride. Also, Throw Mama from the Train has Rob Reiner in a supporting role. You get that nice tissue. But also, Billy Crystal's an author. And I guess spoilers for a 40-year-old movie, almost. Let's just say the events of the film maybe end up getting written about. So it's kind of like you're watching like The Princess Bride before it gets written about into a book that the grandpa then reads, you know? So it's like a different way of looking at a movie with a book and an author involved. So yeah.
Throw
Mama from the Train. Really good, actually. Danny DeVito's in it too. I should have led with that, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Bury the lead.
What one is it with Estelle Getty?
Oh, that's like Shoot My Grandma's Dead or something like that. Don't shoot
don't
my grandma's
shoot.
a cop. I don't know.
Stop, my mom will shoot.
Yeah.
Stop, my grandma will shoot. Let's just Google this.
Why did I get that mixed up with Throw Mama
Stop
from the Train?
or my mom will shoot.
That's it.
That's the movie that Schwarzenegger tricked Stallone into making, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, definitely did not pick that. So
no. Okay.
Cool.
Wow.
Good stuff. RJ, back to you.
So my next pick is, and I'm gonna read the IMDb description for this because I have no idea how to really sum up the movie otherwise, but is Moonstruck, another 1987 romantic comedy, starring Cher as a bookkeeper in Brooklyn who falls in love with Nicolas Cage, who is the brother of her fiance, and he has one hand. But it is a great movie. And
directed by one of the people who was at one point vetted to direct The Princess Bride, actually.
Really?
Another good tie-in.
I love it. I need to see that movie.
Perhaps
I'll, now that we're going to have a bit of a break between seasons, I'll have time to finally watch some of these movies.
That's just ever-growing list of things over there.
Yeah. The never-ending list, the never-ending watch list, you know? But that's it. We love a watch list. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't love a watch list? Yeah. All right. For my second recommendation, I'm going to go with another movie that features a story within a story as a storytelling device. It's a more recent example, a movie that I really dug. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Asteroid City is a cool story
nice.
within a story kind of movie.
Yeah.
Have not
I
yet
have not
seen
seen
it.
it yet.
Haven't seen
no.
it yet, but I've heard good
Sailor
things.
has. He loves his Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
true.
a big Wes Anderson guy, and probably could have gone with a few other choices for story within a story for Wes Anderson, but I think Asteroid City came out last year, so
Yeah.
it's on all the streamers right now. So check it out.
Sounds good.
Alrighty,
Nice.
last round of recos. Ramona,
My
back
last
to you.
recommendation, I am staying within the general time period of my other two recommendations. Well, no, I guess that's not true because Stardust was 2007. But anyway, 1991, I am going to recommend Hook with Robin Williams
Ah,
and Dustin Hoffman
Nice.
because it is
nice.
a pirate movie. And Peter Pan is an old man now. Not really that old, but they like to say he is. But he's got to go back to Neverland to save his children from Captain Hook and regain his memories of when he was Peter Pan. So another movie I saw when I was very young and loved it, and got all the swashbuckling and a tiny, teeny little bit of romance in there somewhere. But I think this is a really fun movie and definitely a great one to watch with your kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Very good one.
Amazing
Very
pick.
cool.
Cool. Bob.
All right. So for my last pick, I'm going to rein it back in a little. I'm going to actually recommend a book series that has given me some of the same feels over time as The Princess Bride did. It also, while set in a fantasy universe, makes use of satire for all kinds of different stories. And there are straight up fantasy stories, romance stories, anything you could imagine he's probably done. And that's the series is the Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's set on a completely flat world that sits on the back of 4 elephants that stand on the back of a giant space turtle,
Yeah.
and contains all kinds of different creatures and characters. I'll shout out 3 novels in particular that are pretty easy to get started on. Weird Sisters, which is about some witches and the true king that needs to come back. Guards, which is about the city guards in the largest city on the Discworld, and Small Gods. Those are all great places to jump in. There are about 38 books. You don't have to read them in order. You can just dip in and out, whatever suits you.
Nice. I've seen them in the bookstore. I've never read one though.
They're super fun. They're
They
hilarious.
are the
I'm gonna
best.
put that on my to read list.
Read all of them.
Yes. I'm slowly making my way through all of them at the moment.
Awesome.
Very nice. I like that. I don't have a reading list because reading is too hard for me.
Just like that's the whole reading list.
Yeah, I'll wait for the Netflix version.
Oh God.
Duke, what's your final recommendation?
All right. My final pick is a TV series that also kind of uses a framing technique and will kind of play around and kind of, skip over certain details or gloss over certain details that may be inappropriate or not suitable for the younger audience that the narrator is telling. And that is How I Met Your Mother. Of course, you have Josh Radner's Ted Mosby in the future, voiced by Bob Saget, telling his 2 children how he met his mother. Instead of marijuana, they're eating a sandwich, and there's some other stuff. He forgets stuff, or he misremembers stuff, and then it comes back in later seasons and stuff like that. So I was trying to think of one that had a framing technique, and I actually just switched it to How I Met Your Mother like midway through the podcast because it popped into my head. So yeah,
Great show.
One of my
except
favorite
for the
shows,
end.
How I Met Your Mother. I know Ramona doesn't like the ending, so
Yeah, I
It's a
feel like
great
we've
show up.
discussed that.
It's a great show up to season 9. Let's just say that. The last season is poop, but the rest of the show's great.
Poop.
Happens so often, sadly.
I know. It's so disappointing.
you
But
got
it
that
does. The
alternate
framing
ending,
part is
Ramona.
really fun.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
know.
That's a good connection.
Yeah.
I like the framing point.
Yeah. The storytelling is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good moments.
Really playful storytelling for sure. Cool. RJ, what is your final recommendation?
My final recommendation is a song.
Ooh.
The song is Brothers in Arms from the 1985 Dire Straits album of the same name. And I'm glad I remembered to put this on the list. One, because Dahlgren would be real mad at me if I didn't somehow work Mark Knopfler into this podcast, because he wrote the musical score for
Yes, he
Princess
did.
Bride,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Nice.
And Mark Knopfler is amazing. He's the lead singer and vocalist for Dire Straits. If
Nice.
anyone out there doesn't know, but it's an amazing song. That is my favorite of his songs. So
Very cool.
Sweet. Great choice. Cool. I'm surprised none of us went with what I thought would have been the super obvious choice, which I won't say now.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
I'll say
Me
it
too,
after.
actually.
I think it'll be interesting to see if we're thinking about the same one, Bob.
Okay.
And then I have another recommendation that I want to give, but I feel like I'm obligated to give this other recommendation. So I'm going to recommend a third movie, and we spoke about him briefly, but we didn't give him a big enough shout out. But Christopher Guest is awesome in this movie, and he was also, I think, he's in Spinal Tap with Reiner a few years earlier, but he goes on to be like the king of mockumentary films, and one of the best ones is Best in Show. So
Yeah.
I really do want to give that
Best in
movie
Show.
a shout out, and I don't know what other episode I'll be able to do that on. So that is my final recommendation.
Nice.
Best in Show's
Sweet.
awesome. Yeah.
Hilarious movie. Before we talk about the obvious choice that we all skipped over, let's do one quick last spin through all of our recommendations. Same order. Ramona, go.
My recommendations are 3 movies: 2007's Stardust, the 1985 film The Goonies, and the 1991 film Hook.
Bob, go.
My recommendations are the 1982 animated film The Last Unicorn, the 1988 not animated film by John Carpenter, They Live, and the entire series of Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett.
Amazing. Duke, go.
My first pick is the 1988 movie Vice Versa, starring Fred Savage. My next pick was Throw Mama from the Train, another movie starring Billy Crystal, and Rob Reiner's in it for a bit. And then my final pick was the television series How I Met Your Mother. So yeah.
Awesome. RJ, go.
my picks were the 1970s crime drama Columbo, starring the amazing Peter Falk, the 1987 romantic comedy Moonstruck, starring Cher and Nicolas Cage, and then the song Brothers in Arms from 1985 Dire Straits album Brothers in Arms.
Amazing. Raf, go. I've got 3 movies. I've got Hot Rod, Asteroid City, and Best in Show. The obvious choice that I thought at least one of us would say was Shrek. Bob, is that what you were thinking?
No, actually, I was thinking of The Never-Ending Story.
That would have been the other obvious choice.
Both great choices. I wouldn't even thought of Shrek. That's
But
really interesting. Yeah.
Shrek never would have occurred to me. The Never-Ending Story occurred to me, but I could not figure out how to summarize.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I just don't like that movie.
Really?
Yeah,
What?
it's so painful to get through.
What?
Wowza. Oh, all right.
Also,
That's
Oh.
one of those
Willow.
movies where if you didn't grow up with it as a kid, it's just not good.
I'm rubbing my forehead.
Nostalgia
Youths.
goggles are strong with that one.
Kids these days.
I
Right.
mean,
Gosh.
Duke, let's not yuck other people's yums. That's not what we like to do on the show. We appreciate all film appreciation for all of the different forms that it takes. That's the beautiful thing about what we're doing here at the Canon. Thank you guys for joining for this season 3 finale. This has been a ton of fun. Season 3 has been super great. A lot of really great episodes, really great conversations, really great guests. So, if you're listening to this now and you haven't listened to the previous 15, 16 episodes in season 3, definitely give them a listen. If you haven't listened to the 40 plus episodes that we have between seasons 1, 2, and 3, definitely give those a listen. Like I said, we'll be back for season 4 in mid-July. We will most likely have some bonus episodes that won't just be, conversations about one movie specifically, but those will be coming out, in the next couple of weeks to sort of hold people over until we finally are able to release season 4. But yeah, thank you all again for joining for this episode. Thank you guys for joining for previous episodes. Listeners, thank you as always for sticking with us and checking us out. We can't do it without any of you. So always a good time, always a blast. I feel like this is the perfect movie for us to end this season with. Any final goodbyes, anything on the website that any of you are working on that we should be aware of for the next couple of weeks?
Same old.
Yeah.
Whoa. Tomorrow, Ramona will publish a Canon article that has write-ups from Bob and RJ. I think that's worth mentioning.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
What movie?
it is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Nice. Might make an
And,
appearance in season 4 of the
there
podcast
you
version
go.
of the Canon.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So what else? We got Terminator collab ranking coming up. If you actually want to, listener, submit your own ranking, go to the site. There's a post, and there'll be instructions how to submit it. We also got some good top 100 lists in development. So yeah, keep an eye on the site coming up. The main stuff coming up. I don't know if anybody else has something in the development.
Rom-com rewind every Tuesday. Yay.
That's right.
And
Fear
Fear
Flash-
Flashback every
There you
Friday.
go.
Flashback, yeah.
Amazing. I love it. Plenty of good stuff coming on the website. We'll be back with season 4 in a couple of weeks. And I think that's all that we've got. Thank you again for joining. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll see you next time. And in the meantime, we'll see you in the wasteland.